Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to this edition of the 2013 Trinity College Men's Football Preview Show. We are lucky enough today to be joined by Trinity head coach Jeff Devanney, ready to lead the Bantams in a new season following their 2012 8-0 undefeated NESCAC crown. Coach Devanney, you guys play Bates this weekend. The big question is, who's going to be your starting quarterback?
Well, I'm not going to give you that information, Harry. I think we've kind of made that decision as a staff, but we're going to let it play out for a couple more days in practice. We're actually in a really good situation as a team in that we have a number of quarterbacks we feel like we can win with. And a couple of guys have kind of separated themselves from the pack in their consistency this preseason. And we're going to give them both reps this week, and we'll see where we go. We'll probably make that decision Saturday morning.
Hi, I'm David Linden, and I'm joining Harry. And Coach, I'm wondering, which freshmen have impressed you so far?
Well, it's actually a really talented class, so I'm not going to name one guy in particular, but I think you'll see a bunch of freshmen on the field for us this year, which is it's not unusual that we'll have one or two play for us, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 6 or 7 on the field. It's, again, without naming names when we haven't even played a game yet, there have been 6 or 7 guys who physically and athletically and mentally are ready to play varsity football, and will probably get on the field for us early in the season.
For as long as everyone seems to remember, since you played here, Trinity College football has been about defense. This past spring, you guys graduated a bunch of great defensive players like you do every year, and every year you're at the top of the NESCAC in defense. How do you do it?
Well, I think it's a lot to do with recruiting. We recruited some very, very good football players here. I mean, you look back through the recent years, the Walter Fallises and Ty Berries and Mike Souls and Aaron Goldsteins and Mike Blairs, number of guys who've been players of the year in the league. But the thing about us, I think, is our guys play with tremendous effort on a consistent basis, and year in and year out, we're able to play 18 or 19 players. So we're never really reliant on 1 or 2 guys. And I think this year, a little bit like last year, we weren't as dominant last year up front, but we had a lot of guys that could play and a lot of guys that can run. I think you'll see that again this year. We might not be as physically dominating. We might not have a Mike Blair or a Walter Fallis in our front 7, but we have guys that can run from sideline to sideline.
Coach, you had such a memorable win against Wesleyan last year, which capped a spectacular season. How do you plan to build on that success from last year?
Well, one of the things that we're really trying to do is not think about last year, because last year has nothing to do with this year, and 2003 has nothing to do with this year, and the players that played here in the past, well, they built a tremendous tradition, have nothing to do with how we play this year. So we're really a very, very different team, I think, this year. One of the things that we're trying to do as a staff is we have some very obvious strengths, like our offensive backfield, and we have some other positions which aren't strengths right now, and we're trying to really maximize our strengths on both sides of the ball and within our special teams, and minimize what our weaknesses are at that time. And every season is different. In college, there's no 10-year veterans like there are in the NFL. So, every year people say, geez, how are you going to replace those guys? Well, that's what college football is all about. Some sophomore or junior that hasn't had an opportunity has to step up and do that, and that's what we're looking for this year.
Coach, you mentioned the running backs just now. What's it like to have an All-American like Evan Bunker and such a speedy, versatile weapon like Ben Crick in your backfield?
Well, it's, what's been special about the two of them is they've never have they had an issue with being selfish or complaining about having to share the ball or anything in the time that they've been here. I had a question from a reporter the other day about how much time we've had to spend as a staff making sure that they're happy. And I said, I have not spent 1 second in 4 years worrying about whether they're happy. They're just the consummate team guys, which when your best players are like that, it really makes it easier to coach. And it's been very interesting watching the two of them, and we've tried to do more of getting the two of them on the field together, and I think you'll see a lot more of that this year too. Because the thing about them is everybody looks at them as tailbacks, but they're football players. They can both run, they can both catch, they'll both block. There were plays last year we're running power and Crick's the fullback, and the next play we're running power and Bunker's the fullback. They both pick up the blitz and pass protection. They're just good all-around football players. They're not just good with the ball in their hands. So I think we're going to do a lot more to get them both on the field together this year.
Coach, Bunker and Crick, as great as they are, they can't do it without any help. How do you expect the offensive line to play this year?
Well, I'll say first of all, Mark Melnitsky is a really, really good football coach, our offensive line coach. And in the years that he's been here, our offensive line's always been good, no matter who's playing it. So obviously it's tough when you lose Mike Valenti and Gino Arnold and Tim O'Brien and Andrew Weiss to graduation. I mean, those are good football players that played a lot of football here. But we have Joe Magardino, who's played a lot of football. Matt Porter stepped right in last year when Tim O'Brien got hurt and started every game for us. Jake Golden is having a great preseason. And we've got a lot of really young, talented guys that are competing for those other two spots. And I have every confidence that they'll do fine. Coach Mel just does such a good job coaching those guys. He's not easy on them by any stretch of the imagination, but he'll whip those guys into shape and they'll be fine.
We have Bates coming up this weekend. What makes him so difficult to play against?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, just X's and O's wise, they're very, very different than anybody in the league. They run, on offense, they run an old school triple option, type of scheme, like an old wing T type thing, but more modernized out of the pistol, which is just difficult to defend. They make you really play disciplined football. And then defensively, they're a 3-3-5. They blitz, they stunt, they do a lot of different things out of that 8-man front, which again is just unlike anything else really anybody else in the league does. The advantage for us, I guess, is we get them week 1. So we've had all spring and summer to prepare, to make sure our guys are ready, because it's one of those things where it really is very different than anything else we'll face during the year. They're extremely well coached. They're very disciplined. They're not a team that's going to beat themselves. You have to execute against them and beat them. And if you don't, you can see what happened, at Williams last year. I think they scored 46 points against Williams, because Williams just didn't play well that day and didn't execute. And if you don't do it against what they're doing, you're in big trouble.
You see a common theme with a lot of coaches in football, pro level, Division I, your level, about coaches talking about the past being the past, not worrying about the previous week or the previous year. But for you, you played here, you won championships here, you won several championships here as a coach. What's it like for you to take charge of a program that has meant so much to you throughout your entire life?
That's a good question, Harry. I'd say I'm so proud to be the head football coach at Trinity College. I have such great memories of playing here. And one of the favorite things about my job is actually dealing with the past. I love the alums here are great, great people, special people. And I'm able to keep in touch with my friends that I played with. And I've also made some great friends from guys that played before me and are a big part of what we do as a program. And, it's special for me, like this year is the 20th anniversary of the 93 undefeated team, which I graduated in 93, so 92 was my last year, but I played with all those guys and still am very close with a lot of those guys. And then the 2003 team, it's the 10th anniversary for them of the undefeated season, and that was basically when I first came back here to coach, and I recruited some of those guys, and they kind of got this thing rolling that we've had going on here the last 10 years. So we're going to have some special events at some home games this year to recognize those teams, and it is fun. We have a dinner coming up here in another 2 weeks with Macy Russell, who hosts a dinner every year for our players. It's a special event, and so the past is always intertwined with what we're doing presently, and it's part of one of the things I think people come here when I talk to the team on Friday nights before games. I think part of the reason, or at least part of the reason I'd like to think they choose to come here, is there is that tradition and there is that kind of connection with people that played here in the past. That's pretty cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in this week. Coach Devanney, thank you for your time. The Bantams play Bates this weekend in Lewiston at 1 o'clock. We'll be back next week with a preview of the Williams game.